Hi everybody, welcome back to Las Vegas. We're here at the Wynn. This is day 2. We're wrapping up day 2 of UiPath Fusion conference. Used to be called Forward. They did 7 forwards, dropped the name, they transitioned to Fusion, which is great because we're fusing the past with the future, agentic, bringing new levels of opportunity and in AI. My name is Dave Vellante, and we're here with Maxim Ioffe, who is a CUBE alum and global intelligent automation leader at Wesco. Good to see you again, Max. Thanks for coming back on.
Thank you, Dave. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
How is Fusion going for you? You've been to many of these customer conferences. What do you think of this one?
Loved it. I think that's the first conference I've been to where ROI was at top of the stage. Bringing the ROI into AI is something that is really, to me, it's the right area of focus. And it's one thing to put it on a banner, it's another thing to try to put it into just about every conversation, just about every talk. A lot of keynotes are focused on that. It's not the hammer looking for the nail, it's more about how do we do it in a profitable way.
One of the things that Daniel said in his keynotes, which really resonated with me, is he said the process is the hero. And I think about that because a lot of times we talk about data gravity. Data has gravity and people don't like to move data, but process also has gravity. And it's really where, you think about IT in and of itself, it doesn't deliver value. What delivers value is how it supports the process, how the process supports the business, either increasing revenue or cutting costs. So how did that resonate with you? What do you take away from that?
No, it resonates really well. To your point, the technology is a cost. Technology is not necessarily the value. The value is in doing what business needs us to do. We as technologists don't tell the business, this is how you should run. We come into business, in my case a distribution company, wholesale distributor, and say, what can we do to help us to work well with our partners, to service our customers, and hopefully make some profit out of it? Well, that's all about the process. It's all about the individual steps in that big thing that we're doing.
How do you think about, you've got a ton of experience in RPA, automation, you run the Center of Excellence for your company and have for a number of years. And now with GenAI, we're entering this new era of possibility. It was almost like we were trying to force sort of previous eras of automation into this new era, and then GenAI comes along, it's like, okay, now it's no longer aspirational, the technology is going to support it, but now there's a human element to it. So how do you think about that journey from point products like RPA, stitched together sort of various tools to create the beginnings of a platform, to which now is we're entering a platform and an agentic era?
Yes, we are slowly segueing into orchestration in a way, right? But fundamentally, if you think about the business experience, we want to automate the process. We look at the process. We see some tasks that are pretty straightforward, they're rules-based. There is no need to change anything, we can still automate them. There are some points of decision making. Well, technology allows us to automate some of that decisioning, and that makes it a lot easier to automate and deliver business to solution. But at the same time, we as humans are creatures of habits, creatures of our standard operating procedures, creatures of this is how we want the business to be done, and we want to be careful to preserve that throughout the automation, which means that as we look at the use cases, we still look at it through the lens of what do we want to achieve? How business wants to do things? Now let's see if we can do it with technology. A lot of times the answer is yes, and a lot of times it's agentic, robotic, and human in the loop, and each one of them can shine and deliver the best of what they're capable of delivering.
So when you think about things like process mining and the like, we were looking for opportunities to potentially automate.
Mm-hmm.
And now it feels like and I'd love your thoughts on this, it feels like we're entering the era of beginning days, but the North Star is that the operational model will be that the process is kind of built on the fly, if you will, to
Right.
serve the particular need and according to objectives and constraints and metrics and whatever those are, that'll be optimized for that particular task. So, it won't be it's like every process actually could be a beneficial snowflake, whereas before the last thing you wanted to do is to have a snowflake for every situation, but now it seems like within the next several years we'll be able to get there where that individualized, that personalized process is actually, that snowflake is actually an advantage, if that makes sense. What are your thoughts on that?
It does, and I think about it as a snowball versus a snowflake. When you look at it from the macro level, yeah, it is a snowball. It's a big process. It has a lot of different things that need to happen, hopefully in the most automated, the most agentic, the most smart way possible. And within that snowball, as you start zooming in, you start seeing, oh, we're still doing tasks, we're still entering orders. We're still chasing our suppliers saying, hey, when is my product coming? EDI has been around 50 years, doesn't mean that it can answer that question in an effective way and at scale. APIs has been around for decades, doesn't mean they can answer that question. Sometimes good old web scraping is what takes you there. And think about UiPath, if you think about Maestro Orchestrator, it's exactly that. To me, it's all about starting from that big snowball of a process, zoom in, and you start seeing the blocks and decision points, zoom in some more, and eventually you see a dozen of bots and a couple of agents, whatever the ratio is, but that's what does it, and I don't see that changing. We just can do more, and we can visualize it a lot better. And quite frankly, from the business user standpoint, you just see a snowball. You don't need to worry about all those individual elements that build it.
How do you see, that said, how do you see the software stack changing? When you think about the move to SaaS, it changed the technology model, became cloud, the operational model became kind of standardized templates from snowflakes in the previous, on-prem, and then the business model, the pricing model completely changed. And it seems like we're going through a similar transition now. We call it, instead of services as software, some people, we picked up on this, instead of software as service, services as software, where those services are productivity drivers that are delivered through software with new services. Before it was, whether it was HR or service management or CRM, now it's new services delivered through software. So how do you see that? How do you see the software stack changing as a result, and what role does orchestration play in that?
Great question, and I think Wesco lived through that over decades as we are trying to consolidate various ERPs and decide where we want to be, and eventually we made a decision that best in breed is where we're going to go. It's not about that big monolithic software package that does it all at once. It's more about who is the best at accounts payable, who is the best at supply chain management, who is the best at whatever business function you're looking at, and all of a sudden you have this proliferation where you cannot even count how many software packages you need to work with. They all need to talk to each other, and that takes us back to the orchestration. Half of it is exchanging the data, but a bigger part of it, back to where we started, is the process is the king, and exchanging the process and seamlessly integrating all this different stack into a unified process that a business user doesn't need to worry about what's behind it. And frankly, best in class. I think Daniel mentioned the Switzerland of automation, right? Bring your own model, bring your own solution, bring your own anything. This continues to grow, and that's why the orchestration becomes awesome that you bring it. We need to be almost instant at unplug this and plug in this, and guess what? That snowball of a process stays the same. It doesn't even notice that something changes, except that the process is done faster, better, whatever the case might be.
I look at it similarly. We use the analogy of Lego blocks that can fit together and be formed to do whatever you need it to do that at that point. But in the context of Switzerland, so I'd love your thoughts on UiPath's strategy in that regard, because the process is the hero, and the SaaS vendors have the process logic, they have the metadata and the data associated with the process, and they're going to try to hang on to it. So UiPath strategy is to connect to those, form partnerships, be the orchestrator, I feel as though there are others that are maybe in their SaaS domain also want to, that's our task to orchestrate, and so that creates a little bit of tension. What breaks that? Is it the customer demand that says, no, we want no lock-in, we want the horizontal capability, versus the SaaS vendor saying, no, use our orchestrator? How do you see that play, or there's there like an orchestrator of orchestrators? How do you see that playing out?
I mean, every customer is different, every company is different, every software provider is different. Of course, Salesforce would want you to be locked in Agentforce, and stick there, and ServiceNow wants you to be locked in their ecosystem. And we as a customer need to make a choice. Is that where we want to be? Or do we want to be able to bring your own model? Look at the AI market, how quickly you go from GDP4 to GDP5, and then Google does the next version of their product and somebody else does this. It's a decision making, and to me, what UiPath is trying to say, at least the way I understand it, is bring the best in class, substitute the best in class, back to your Lego block analogy, pull out this red brick, put in the blue brick, it will still work. To me, that looks very attractive, and if you, as you said, orchestrator of orchestration, I think that's where it's headed, and I think that's a very smart move for UiPath to take that role. At the end of the day, the automation plays that narrow gap between core software capabilities and purpose-built software tools that can do it. And it almost like the orchestration is what goes way across that, as opposite to sticking the automation into that narrow thing. So I think it's a great play, and the fact that they have UI automation basically means that if I have an API, amazing, I will integrate with APIs. If I don't, I still have my robots that can act like an API. And we have that ability to fuse things together that are not fusible on the surface.
So you see building on top of existing automations as an advantage for your company. Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely. I have many hundreds of automations. I look at each one of the automation as its own tool for possible agents, or think of those as deterministic agents. So if I have a deterministic process, I have a deterministic agent to do the work. If it's a non-deterministic, goal-driven process, I have agents to do the work. And where I need to insert humans, I need to insert humans. UiPath makes it very easy, and it also could be a journey where I start with a human-driven process. Think of a Maestro flowchart, and every block says human, 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 human. All of a sudden, this block can be a bot. This one can be an agent. This one can be a combination of the two. And we slowly drift toward that big snowball where everything is done the way we want it to be, with humans only approving or making the key decisions that we really don't want to automate, regardless if we can.
From a customer perspective, and as somebody who's an automation expert and has seen it all, what are the major barriers, blockers to use that term, that if they were removed would make your life a lot easier?
It's a good question. I think the biggest blockers have nothing to do with the software. It's a business reality. We need to define the process in order to automate the process. We need to agree on a process in order to automate the process. A lot of times you even say, well, agentic is great. Can you build an agent that does something? Okay, we can do it. What's the good outcome of that agent? We don't know. Do we have the data to do this? We don't. Those are the barriers that will be solved over time, and it's making the journey a little bit less straightforward than I'm going to build the agent today. It might be I'm going to build a process that collects the data today, so I can have enough data to build the agent tomorrow, next week, next month. But it's a journey, and the journey is going to be walked just like we did with RPA.
So that's out of the control generally of a software product company. Mm-hmm. Who are the types of companies that you want to see UiPath partner with? You don't have to name names, or you can if you want, that can help remove those blockers.
That's a good question. I think UiPath have built a really nice ecosystem where they are bringing a lot of things, right? And we haven't talked about security, but obviously it's not a blocker, but it's a consideration. So partnering with companies that can help to make sure that the trust layer is as secure, as trusted as possible, the data integrations, the clarity and the visibility of the process. All that needs to be happening. I think UiPath is on the way, on the right path, no pun there, to bring all those companies together into the ecosystem. The fact that they're taking the approach of bring us your model, bring us your LLM, bring us your agent, bring us your agentic framework is telling me that they are thinking about it the right way. They may not necessarily even need to partner. We can just integrate it together. I think that's a great idea to play on the orchestration layer.
Well, since you brought up security, what is the security? We haven't talked much about security. We were here 2 weeks ago at the CrowdStrike show. That's all we talked about is security. And it's a very important topic. What is the security model for things like role-based access control, or making sure LLMs don't leak, or encrypting, queries, and returns, data, data protection, et cetera? What is the security model in the automation world? How much of that is the responsibility of UiPath? How much are partners, whether it's identity players or certainly big cloud players, et cetera?
Good question, and I think security is a very broad word, and I'm sure CrowdStrike folks are a lot more qualified to answer that question than I am, but ultimately it's all about organization, place, and willingness to take the risks, and really let the IT security experts, let the CISOs professionals, and everybody else tell us how they want it to be. And let UiPath, to your earlier question, bring the right partners to deliver what needs to be delivered to match that security. I'm not an expert in security, I'm an automation guy. I vaguely understand the concepts. To me, the key here is UiPath's ability to observe and talk to my security and say, yes, we do have the right certificates. Yes, we do know how to protect the data in transit, at rest.
Okay.
We know where the data is going and all that stuff, right?
So, okay, so the scenario is, I'm an organization, I have a SecOps team, they might use whatever, Okta or Microsoft for identity, they maybe Palo Alto or CrowdStrike, and whatever it is, and a number of tools. That's their domain. UiPath has to make sure that it plays nice within that domain, which they're selling enterprise software, so we know what that's like. You can't just show up and say, here it is. Oh, security, well, I'll get back to you. No, you have to be hardened, which they've done over the past many years. So they fit into that model. And then within the world of whether it's bots or agents, they're responsible for that piece of it. So it's kind of a shared responsibility model.
Absolutely. It's, to your point, we went through UiPath contract renewal recently, and the biggest and the longest amount of time that I budgeted for was security reviews. I knew it's needed, and I wanted UiPath to talk directly to our security team and make sure everybody is comfortable, which we did. And then to your point, each agent, each bot has its own layer of security and responsibility. This is where it's on us as an architects, on enterprise as a what is the right way of doing it, and on the security providers to make sure that that right way actually works and doesn't bring us down like certain events done with CrowdStrike a while ago.
Yeah.
It was memorable in a way that it shows how much of how security is important, how well it controls and can throw things out of.
Right, and that wasn't even a security event, it was an IT event. It was a patch. It was like, so that's
the level
just,
of dependency.
It just exactly, it underscores the connectiveness and the dependencies to your word. I remember the flash crash. I don't know if you remember that. The stock market dropped unexpectedly, and people couldn't explain it. They said they called it a glitch. Well, a glitch means that we're so interdependent, and we can't explain it.
And that explainability of AI needs to happen there, right? Otherwise, we are in big trouble. And another tenet to the security that we haven't talked about, I'm not an SME in any area. I don't know what the right segregation of duty is. So it's not only on me, but primarily on the business to tell us what is safe in their mind, what are the right levels of authority, what are the right segregation of duties. All that is a shared responsibility of security team, the automation team, the SMEs, and a lot of other players. It's complicated.
How do you feel about so-called AGI? Do you have any thoughts on that as a technologist? It's kind of almost embarrassed asking the question, but because you say you're a generalist, people talk about AGI. I like the term enterprise AGI, meaning applying your own proprietary data and processes to LLMs or maybe I don't know if AGI will ever get there, what that even means, but I'm talking to proprietary advantage. You know, that's to me the holy grail. We wrote a piece a while back why Sam Altman, or why Jamie Dimon is Sam Altman's biggest competitor. Jamie Dimon being a metaphor for enterprises that have proprietary data. Every enterprise has their proprietary data. Thoughts on that?
Well, a couple of thoughts. One is proprietary data is definitely there. Everybody has a secret sauce, and that's what makes that enterprise survive, exist, and prosper. The question is, where is it really saved? Is it saved in the databases? Is it saved in the process maps? Is it saved in employee heads? Is it saved in the corporate culture? And if so, how will AGI extract that data? We are really at the point where I think all the easy data is already extracted, talking about AGI outside of the enterprise or within the enterprise, but there is so much data that is tribal knowledge that's not anywhere. It is implied. And the other factor to it is, we as humans are extremely adaptive. Look at COVID, how a week goes by and everybody's wearing a mask and everybody figures out how it works, and we shut down schools that somehow society didn't fall. Will AGI be able to adopt at the same speed to this whole new data that doesn't exist anywhere, but all of the sudden what was absolutely the norm today is absolutely inaccessible tomorrow, and vice versa. COVID is an extreme example of that business leaves that world all the time.
Adaptability, you know, that's kind of a human trait.
Adaptability, and this is back to Maestro orchestration, right?
Resilience, yeah.
How do you, which block is responsible for it, and can I substitute that Lego block very quickly? I'm hoping that Maestro is an answer to it in a way that it makes the process visual, and I know that, okay, this is the block that I might need to replace with a human until we reprogram AI to understand what it needs to do. Who knows, right? But
I liked how you built that block diagram, human, 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 and then you identify where the best candidates are for automation. It's not necessarily, well, how do you think about that? It's not necessarily the easy ones to automate, or maybe it is, or is it the high value ones like Daniel was saying on Monday or Tuesday, be more ambitious, go for the big wins. You know, how do you choose where to replace the human? What's the right
I think there is a balance, and again, every company is different, every funding situation is different, how much money, to me it's all about, the ROI equation has to check out. The size of opportunity, the cost of the opportunity, and the cost of the return on the investment, they got to work out in favor of building it. And I think from the early days of RPA, we know that not everybody thinks that way. And those 95% of POCs that fail through MIT paper, I think a lot of that has to do, oh, that's a cool tool, let's build something, but we haven't thought of ROI, we haven't thought of technologies, we haven't thought of approvals. If it all connects, yes, you can go for the big case, but in order to think through all that and gain the experience, maybe start small, dream big, eventually get there. To me, a big process like that Maestro map that goes end to end is really the thing that Daniel is going after, but again, as you zoom in, there are so many small steps we need to make. Let's make some today with what we already can, get the ROI, hopefully it will fund the next step, and that will get us big pretty quickly. The good news is, the development cycle with this technology is very short, and ability to extract the ROI doesn't mean that you have to build A to Z. You can build C to D, or C to whatever, I'm struggling with alphabet for a sec, but you can build a bit smaller elements and figure it all out pretty rapidly.
And 95% is not necessarily a bad thing. It sounds bad, but that means there was a lot of learnings that came out of that.
Absolutely. It's a question of the cost of the learning.
Yes.
Going to a good school and paying a good tuition, but can you learn it with free? Can you learn from somebody else's mistakes? But I think a lot of that has to do with everybody wants to do something, but have you thought of security? Have you thought of intro? Have you gotten all the right data elements? Do you have the data? I mean, we get excited easily. It sounds easy to automate a process. Oh, we can automate customer service. What do they do today? Do they have the ticketing system? Where is the data sits? Oh, we haven't asked that up front. Well, you are in 95%.
Well, Max, it was great having you on again. I really appreciate your perspective.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate it. And thank you for watching theCUBE at UiPath Fusion this year. We were super excited to be back. This is our 7th year. Check out siliconangle.com. It's got all the news. We got some posts up there on some of the UiPath announcements. Go to thecuberesearch.com. That's where you'll find all the in-depth research from the CUBE team. And of course, check out thecube.net and check out thecubeai.com. Of course, is our little experiment with AI, where you can just ask it questions. Ask it, what are the top 5 takeaways at UiPath Fusion this year? I'm Dave Vellante for Rebecca Knight, and thanks for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time on theCUBE.